Hello, everybody. This is Anthony, be honest, from Mission Start Podcast, and we have another episode of the Conover. We are getting dangerously close to episode 100. So, with it, or as I say, so as we are getting closer, tonight's episode, episode 99, is going to be with the one and only Jeremy Wilson from the Rolling 20s.
I hope there isn't more of me. Nobody can handle that.
And tonight we're going to talk about everything Long Beach Comic Con, which happened this past weekend. Yeah. So, Jeremy, this would be, what number would this be for you for Long Beach Comic Con at this point?
I think it would be, I believe it would be my third Long Beach Comic Con. I'm trying to separate in my head between Long Beach Comic Con and Long Beach Comic Expo.
Okay, I see. Was it Expo before Comic Con, or are they two separate conventions?
They're two separate conventions run by the same company. Long Beach Comic Con is their fall convention. Long Beach Comic Expo is their late winter, early spring convention.
Oh, gotcha. All right, that's cool. That's awesome. So for Long Beach Comic Con this year, tell me was there anything different this year than in last year's Long Beach Comic Con?
The Artist Alley took over about half of the convention hall, realistically. There was a serious amount of both independent and actual industry creators, and it was the core of the room. They also added 2 giant screens in the exhibit hall for people to just sit down and play Smash Brothers versus each other.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What is that noise you keep making? It always sounds like you're about to swallow a rodent.
That is my own way of like kind of burping, but not really. So I don't know. I'm a weird dude. Okay, cool. So with that change, with that kind of more dynamic change in terms of like more to focus on the artists, for this year's convention, did it change? I mean, I don't think it changed the way you approached it, but like to you, did it visually just looked vastly different than it was last year?
It looked way different. Not by the fact that there was creators. This convention's been pretty good about getting some actual industry heavyweights to go. It's just a matter of, it really changes the outlook of what you're looking for at a convention. With that much more space dedicated to the artists and creators, there's that much less space dedicated to merchandise. So you're less likely to find like key issues or just the ability to start new collections of items. You're just more likely to shore up what you've already got.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So then, for you, when you're going through the convention center, like what was some of the artists that kind of pop out to you as you were kind of browsing through the scene there?
Oh, funny story, because actually in my first 15 minutes at the convention, I turned into that guy. And when I say that guy, it's the connotation of, you know how it is when you meet that one goofy bastard who's just over the moon over a particular like band or something, and they wear that shirt. They wear that shirt all the time. You know, they're the ones that wear the shirt of the band they're going to go see in concert, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I put minimal planning into my wardrobe because I have no cosplays for the weekend. I just want to take photographers and take photographers. Geez, that sounds creepy. Just going to drag photographers into an alley and beat them. No, I just wanted to take pictures and walk around. So I threw on a shirt and I walk around and I get into the first actual column of Artist Alley. And as I'm walking down, I run across a sign of an artist that sounds relatively familiar named Chris Anka. So I stand in front of him as he's talking to someone else, and I'm just trying to think, why do I know this name? Why is this important to me? And he's finished with the person he's talking to. He looks up at me, looks at my chest, looks back at me, and says, "Nice shirt." I'm like, huh? And I look down, and I'm wearing a Captain Marvel t-shirt, and then it clicks with me. Chris Anka used to be the artist on Captain Marvel.
Oh, nice.
So I'm standing there, and I'm just like, I'm glad he noticed me, but then all of a sudden I realize I am that guy.
Damn. Like, what was your next move after that?
Went back to my hotel room to get the sketchbook I forgot so he could get me a head sketch of Captain Marvel.
Nice.
Which I did procure.
Nice. That's awesome. Sweet. So it tends to happen a lot. I mean, like not particularly that moment, but like the bringing of the sketchbook to have it, somebody drawn, which is cool. And that's pretty awesome.
It's not as people don't ask for sketches as often as they ask for signatures. A lot of people try and gain value to their comic books by getting signatures, and fortunately, there's a lot of artists and writers who are nice enough to just sign something you bring. Unfortunately, there are people that really abuse that. Like Brett Booth is not someone. He's a known Image and DC artist. His more recent stuff was like The Flash from the New 52.
Mm-hmm.
And he made an appearance at this convention, relatively rare thing. He doesn't get out very often, at least not in California. And unfortunately, as I was walking by, I didn't even get a chance to talk to him because every time I walked by, there wasn't just people waiting for signatures. There were people who were waiting for signatures with cases full of books, like 20 at a time for him to sign. And I never saw him turn anybody away, to his credit, but also that meant that these people just ate up his time.
Damn. That's, I mean, I can get, you idolize the person, you definitely want them to sign your stuff, but like,
well, there's a difference between idolizing and just plain standing in front of the guy monopolizing his time just to add to the value of your collection.
Yeah.
Shoot, I didn't have anything for Peter David to sign, but I stopped by his booth and said a hearty thank you for his San Diego panel and just the writing he's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. No, I get that. Like I hardly ever geek out over a person I geek out about a lot of things.
Yeah, I was about to say, you lie like you sleep.
But like when it comes to some people, like there's very few people actually like geek out. I'm like, get nervous, like, oh my God, like, just have to, I'm a fan of your work and whatnot. Totally fanboying. And that's not particularly my thing per se. Like I just like, if I ever met the person that I like, really look up to, or they're like kind of a pseudo celebrity in the realm of cosplay or video games, whatever. It's more or less like I like to just come up, like shake the hand or say hi and then go about my day.
Oh yeah, I'm like you. I will always like glad hand creators of stuff that have worked on things that I totally appreciate. However, I will say that there is a difference between getting a couple signatures to round out your collection and totally monopolizing the time of guys who the rest of us only have 48 hours to try and get any sort of time with.
Agreed. Awesome. So there was a big focus on the artists for this convention. Was there any other particular artists that also stood out to you while you were browsing through?
I ran into Todd Knock again. It's gotten to the point where he's recognizing me by face. It's like a little creepy. Like I said, I ran to Peter David. That was a large amount of it. I really would have liked to have gotten some time with Brett Booth. I saw a colorist usually works with Booth named Norm Rapmund, and he seemed to be in a pretty good mood overall, but I didn't really bother him because his booth was getting overrun several times. That was a large amount of what I remember because I walked most of it, and there was a lot of talented artists, both industry and independent. But given that my recent passion is trying to add professional sketches to my sketchbook, my focus narrowed a little bit. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. So outside of the artists that were set up in the convention center, what were some of the artists you noticed that were there this year but wasn't there before last year?
I'm sorry, I got a little confused there. What was that about?
What other things did you check out while you were there aside from the artists?
I went to a few panels. I did manage to get by the Robotech panel. It was being run by Harmony Gold. They gave an update not just as to the status of the series, but also as to the live action movie, which is actually moving forward.
Oh wow! How far is it along?
They don't have a shooting schedule. They signed Justin Lin. I think I have that name correctly. It's Justin Lin. No, it's Justin Lin. No, James Wan. Sorry, James Wan, the director of Aquaman, is on it. He wasn't there, but he gave a video message at least.
Okay, cool, awesome.
And they also were talking about the potential HD re-release of the series at some point, although they were kind of cagey on that. It sounds like they're working on details.
Gotcha. Wow, that's really sick. All right, cool.
It would be nice to see, but I was a little disappointed because I was there. They were nice enough to answer the question I had as to whether or not latter Macross series like Frontier and Delta would be released in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And the base answer was more or less that those series don't really fit into the narrative of Robotech, so they don't plan on it. To which I just want to scratch my head and say, but it's what you guys bought to make it. So
Right. Interesting.
yeah.
They may have plans for can I talk today? They may have plans for it maybe for another time or.
Oh, they don't. They made it pretty clear that Frontier and Delta, two of the latter Macross series, are not in their wheelhouse. It's not going to happen.
Interesting.
So that means if I'm just a Macross fan, then that means I have to invest heavily in Japanese Blu-rays or, check out these things that the kids call torrents. So
Right. Definitely. Okay. Any other panels you attended that weekend?
yeah, I attended the Geeklings panel about cosplay with family since, my kids are turning into tremendous nerds. That was informative, but that particular panel highlighted kind of a problem that the convention has as far as organization. At the last minute, they made the Geeklings switch rooms with another panel, and I was never really given a reason why. Even the people holding the panel seemed to be kind of confused as to why this was occurring. On top of which, in the midst of the panel, people from the Comic-Con staff came in to get, like the paper name cards. Mm-hmm. They dug into the podium to apparently swap those out as well, and they were having trouble figuring out which were going in which room.
Interesting.
So it's kind of disturbing to have everything shifted around, and even then, they still didn't seem to be really firm as to what they had to do.
Odd. And that was just like there was no particular reason for it, or like
I wasn't given one. I don't know if they determined that one panel needed more space than the other, but it was a last minute change that, from what I gathered, really kind of screwed things up. The Geeklings apparently lost a lot of their audience in the switch because the switch happened Sunday morning, like about half an hour before their panel was supposed to start.
Oh, wow. That's nuts. That's crazy.
Yeah. So they had to deal with that, and apparently the only reason why I found the room was because I wasn't actually looking at the signs. I was looking for the faces of the Geeklings as I was walking from room to room and happened across.
Interesting. Very interesting. Aside from that though, how was the panel by itself?
It was informative. It wasn't just the Geeklings; it was also some of their kids. So they had examples of family cosplay, and one of them had a teenage daughter that was actually extremely knowledgeable in cosplay and makeup, and helped with a lot of details.
That's awesome and crazy good at the same time.
Yeah, they made it into a pretty functional family show, so it was very cool.
Nice, awesome. I shouldn't be surprised, honestly. I mean, like, with each generation, I feel like this is whatever, specifically for cosplay. By the time they're 10, 12, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know to make a full costume and put full makeup and everything. So it's like,
I'm waiting for the point where cosplay becomes so regular that as soon as somebody tries, you just got that little green dude saying, force is strong with this one.
The chosen one. Oh man, that's really cool. I mean, if anything, one of my favorite things in the cosplay community, outside of cosplaying, is the family getting into it. Specifically, like the kids, and like it's just that's always the best. Always the best to see, because then like you're bringing in like this kind of child's experience of like, hey, you're going to be surrounded by other geeks and nerds who are in the same thing as you are, and they're like much older than you, and you're going to be popular, and it's going to be fun.
That was probably about one of the best things about the convention that a lot of people won't write about, is that it's very family friendly. They made a lot of things for kids to do. One of the things in the exhibit hall was the Southern California Lego Club apparently came out, and instead of having a booth, they just laid down this humongous tarp, put piles of Legos on it, and let everybody just build to their heart's content.
Nice. Wow.
It was cute.
That's great. That's really cool. Okay. In terms of anything else in terms of panels wise, since we're still on the topic, was there any other panels you managed to check out, or?
I stopped in another reunion of G.I. Joe of voice actors that was completely different from the one I saw like a year ago.
Oh, gotcha.
So I didn't manage to stay long because I was on my way to a couple different things. I have a feeling there was something else I saw that was kind of nifty, but I'm blanking a little bit on what it was. I ran around a lot during the weekend, being the only one there. Shoot. I can't remember it offhand. I've nearly finished my review, and I know it's in there.
Gotcha. Awesome. So so we're recording this on the 22nd of September, and the one joke I keep seeing floating around the internet, which is
If you say it's my photo, I will hurt you.
no, it's not that. It's not that. Specifically, I'm talking about a particular cosplay that is going to be massively popular during this year's Halloween. And my question to you is, now given Long Beach Comic Con, everything cosplay related is going to be, for comic books or whatever else is people going to dress up as. What was the most popular cosplay at Long Beach Comic Con?
I would have to say it was Suicide Squad film version of Harley Quinn.
Bingo. And the reason why I say that because I have a feeling everybody else is...
I was about to say, how would you know? You trying to snoop on me again?
No. It's because it's been a running joke for the past month or two. Like, that's going to be the most cosplayed character on Halloween.
Well, it's not like she wasn't heavily cosplayed before.
I know, but more of an emphasis this year because of the movie. So, okay.
I'd say it was the most numerous. It wasn't exactly overpowering, but I was there during the DC gathering.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I'll give you that. Speaking of which, how was the DC gathering?
It was numerous. It was the largest gathering all weekend. I would say that for sure. But it was held in one of the worst locations.
Wasn't that the case last year as well?
No, last year it was held out front of the convention center. See, this year, I don't know how, but even though it looks like Long Beach Comic Con took over about 2/3 of the convention center, they didn't get the actual front entrance and upper deck of the Long Beach Convention Center. They moved around to this rear entrance on the other side of a performing arts center, and they decided to have the gathering on this staircase, which is usually a good idea when you have large numbers of cosplayers.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, right in front of the staircase is if I had to guess, 15 by 30 foot wide square of concrete in front of other stairs. So the photographers really just kind of got hemmed into this piece of concrete trying to get their photos. And I got a couple of the large group, and after that, I gave up because I was not going to break my neck.
Right. I don't blame you. That's nuts. It's crazy.
So I felt kind of hemmed in. I was with another cosplayer at the time and asked him what his opinion was, and he gave me that shrug that, that people give when they have something very critical to say but want to hold their tongue.
Right, definitely. Wow, that's nuts. But disregarding the problems that were there, at the DC gathering, any particular cosplays that stood out to you when you were taking photos there?
I took a couple photos of this Joker. I've seen him around at a couple of the comic conventions, and he's more like the mid 80s, late 90s Joker, more maniacal than just kind of dirty and ratty like later incarnations.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in a black tuxedo with a purple tie, and it was one of those cases when you talk to him, he's very lucid and very nice, very polite. As soon as you ask him to take a photo, he manages to contort his face into this wide grin that just, oh my God, man. He looks like that flower on his chest is about to be dangerous.
Damn, that's great. That is awesome. Oh, wow, that's cool. So, outside of the DC gathering, what were some other cosplays that caught your eye this past weekend?
Somebody dressed up as Megatron from the original Transformers, but he looked to be about 9 feet tall on stilts somehow.
What?
Yeah, it was really impressive to see. I also saw, gosh darn it, I saw somebody dressed up as the Millennium Falcon.
I saw that, one of the pictures, yes.
Yeah. That's not exactly anything I ever expected. It's one of those points where you just see it and you go, you know what, kudos, that's different.
Awesome. I saw one of the pictures, it wasn't a picture, but it was a video you took on our Instagram account, which you guys check out, Mission Star Podcast on Instagram.
Shameless plug.
But it was, I believe, was it Crane? Like from Ninja Turtles with the, or maybe some other character. He had the LCD on his chest,
Oh, that was Arnim Zola from the Captain America comics.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I thought it was Crane from TMNT. But that looks super sick though. That looks pretty awesome.
It was cool. I don't know where exactly he was seeing out of, but he was having active conversation with people while in that costume, so he can see.
That's great. That's awesome. That's one thing I love about cosplay. It's like there are certain cosplays that you don't like. You're trying to figure out. It's like how did they do it? And then the minute you talk to them, it's like how do you see? What hole did you put in this costume to see?
Isn't that the ultimate sign of a nerd when you're just sitting there going, "How are you looking at me?"
And you're looking for the hole, or you're looking specifically where he's looking at you. It's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, you don't want to go walking around asking the cosplayer, "Hey, where's your hole?"
Oh yeah.
They frown a little.
Right. Okay. Now, as long as I've known you, especially at comic conventions, you do have your sketchbook and you have artists sketching it, and you do buy things at comic conventions and any convention for that matter. So my question was your wallet crying by the end of the weekend, or was it still saying like, hey, I still got money in my wallet?
No, actually, I managed to even come in under the budget I allowed myself simply because, and not to sound bad against this convention, I had a pretty damn good time, but it was always in the back of my head that in a month and a half, I have to go to Kamikaze, Stan Lee's Kamikaze at LA.
Right.
So I'm not going to say I was going to run into better people, but it was always in the back of my head that, Steve and Jesse from the Rolling 20s are going to meet me there, and I got a couple other people to meet, and I got a photo shoot to do. So I was always thinking I got to play it on the down low just in case something comes up that I need that money.
Gotcha. So where did most of your funds go to then?
Honestly, the 2 sketches I picked up, I usually budget to have one, but to run into 2 different artists, both of which I needed for the book, is kind of rare. Especially since when I found out Chris Anka, he was only going to be there on Saturday.
Oh, gotcha.
So I had to spend that money like up front.
That's great. That is awesome. So in regards to excuse me, sorry, I just say.
Am I that interesting?
Yes, exactly. That is exactly right. In terms of while you're walking around, like any particular moment that kind of happened in front of you, just kind of made you stop and either scratch your head or it's like, that's a thing that happened. Okay.
Yeah, actually, it's something else I took photos of. I ran into a Gwenpool, which is an actual Marvel character. It's like, what if Gwen Stacy became from an alternate universe, came into the regular Marvel universe and decided everything is fake, so she just acts crazy.
I see.
So she became, they call her Gwenpool. It's like Gwen Stacy with Deadpool's attitude. I saw a young lady dressed up as that, and I hadn't seen too many of those before, so I stopped to take her picture. And as I was taking her photo, somebody she knew dressed up as Spider-Man walked over. They started talking back and forth, and the Spider-Man looks at me and says, "Oh," and all of a sudden he strikes a pose like I just ran up and asked for a photo. So she starts posing with him, and the 2 of them are having an almost in-character conversation. He looks at me and says, "Can you believe this? Where did this come from?" I'm all universe. What universe? What? Like there's any other universe. There's other universes. Like what? I'm going to shove this skull up your ass.
That's great. That is awesome. Did you, like, when you were taking the picture, how hard was it to not just laugh maniacally during the entire time?
I was just kind of watching this whole thing unfold. My only regret was that I didn't have somebody else with a video camera.
That's great. I love those moments. Those are the best. Okay. So, Long Beach Comic Con. Remind me, where location-wise is it located again?
It's called Long Beach.
Oh, duh. Okay. Sorry. Sorry. Long day.
I cannot believe that was a question.
Yeah. What I meant to actually ask was that what was your go-to food places? Were there like any food trucks nearby the con, or was it close enough to where you could just walk down the street and pick up like a Subway sandwich?
I didn't have a go-to food place. I played it by ear, but I will say that despite the changes and the fact that they had to use what is considered the rear entrance of Long Beach Convention Center, the trucks adjusted admirably and set themselves up in a small like roundabout right outside the rear entrance.
Nice, nice.
So people were able to get food, although the wait times were a little obscene. I was with a cosplayer named Chris who ordered his food from a truck that was relatively busy, and he managed to get it about half an hour later. I wish I was embellishing or making that up, but he waited a strange amount of time for his food.
Wow, wow. Would it have been worth it maybe to just go to another restaurant place instead of the food trucks, or was that like the most convenient thing to do at the con?
It was the most convenient thing to do because he and I were still talking to other cosplayers and stuff. I mean, I like Long Beach as a venue, not because it's big, but because the local area has it's got a great mix of options for people who've never been there before. The Long Beach Convention Center is across the street from an entertainment venue called The Pike.
Oh,
and
right,
it's a series of shops and outlets so that you have a choice of different places to eat, on top of which they built like 5 to 7 major chain restaurants catty corner to the block that the convention center sits on. But with all of us at the rear entrance, that means none of that was in eyesight. You'd have to walk the entirety of the way around the convention center to get to this stuff now.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
I personally, I had dinner Saturday night at the Rock Bottom, which is one of my favorite non-chain restaurants because they serve good Americana, and they're also a microbrewery, so that'd be the kind of place you'd like to sit down at.
Sounds good. I'd be down for that.
Every year I sit down there, there's always execs and exhibitors who are sitting down trying the local beer sampler.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I'll keep that in mind the next time I am in that location, either for Long Beach Comic Con if I do go, or any other event, for sure.
You say that, but you're already planning a way to suck down beer.
Yeah. One of the things I think that I think in my mind, I think one of the most important aspects to a convention, because when you go to a convention, the first things you are greeted with is, you are going to the convention, you get through the front doors, there's cosplays, there's people having fun, and then you have to go in line for your badge.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's one of the most important things. So for Long Beach Comic Con, how was that handled for this year?
Honestly, that was one of the hardest things to look at. Being press, that means I have to get into an inherently shorter line generally than a lot of people, but I do take notes as to how other things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked by a line that snaked through that entire rear courtyard and entrance to the Long Beach Convention Center, full of people waiting to get a badge.
Wow. Was there? I'm asked, was there a particular problem per se with the registration, or was it because of just so many people that there were maybe not many people to get the process going, or what? Any knowledge on that?
I would say that the last couple of years I've been, it's a good convention, but I do think that organization has been a long-term problem for this particular place, and it just doesn't look like they've fixed what issues they've got as of yet.
Interesting. I felt like I remember having the same conversation in previous years. I felt like it was last year or maybe 2 years ago. Like it felt like it was more praise about the registration for Long Beach Comic Con, or was this been an oncurring thing?
Well, organization's been an issue since I can remember as far as this convention, though it usually hasn't been a serious detractor. In this case, the last few years, registrations run fast. They've managed to keep those lines short. So somewhere in the last year, things have kind of ground to a strange halt.
Interesting. I would like to know exactly why that was for this year.
I was curious about that myself. I just couldn't think of a good reason why things would break down like this at this point, I would say. You would think by now, with 2 different conventions to run in the same venue, you would understand everything you need. And you could say it was because they went from the front of the building to the back, except they've run conventions at both the front and the back of the convention center access points before. So I don't really know where things broke down at.
Interesting. Okay. So with that in mind, since we're talking about the negative of Long Beach Comic Con, what other particular negative things, or what other things could you point out that this convention could have done better in terms of just whatever the case may be?
I would say signage. Like I said, downstairs I was looking for faces instead of looking at signs. They had the occasional monitor set up outside places, but you had to be right outside it to see the signs and with the schedule on it. And the monitors are a nifty help because, yeah, you can change them on the fly. But if they're just outside the panel room you're looking for, they're not really helpful if you're walking around looking for it anyway. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A mini map of some sort at a couple of high traffic zones would have been a huge help just for me to get my way from point A to point B without walking a circle going, where in the hell am I?
Didn't they have? Do they have an app? Like, 'cause I know with some conventions they have an app with guidebook, or have their own app when it comes to maps. Did they have one for this year's Long Beach Comic Con?
I didn't see any listed on the website, so I made sure to print out their schedule and carry it with me.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other particular problems with this year's Long Beach Comic Con?
Not an extreme one. You know, the other stuff is just kind of the minor issues you run into sometimes at conventions when you're looking for something and just unsure of where to find it. And you know how it is at these things, Anthony. It's a little easy that when you can't find your way, you just kind of throw up your hands and say, well, this sucks. This convention's awful. You know,
Yeah.
In my case, I just kind of say, okay, where's my guidebook? I got to figure this out for myself.
Definitely. Or like follow your nose type of situation where you just follow like, hey, these cosplayers are going to this gathering. I'm going to follow them and hopefully they lead me to the right way.
Yeah, but for a convention of a few thousand people, it runs into amazingly normal problems at larger conventions. When I was waiting to talk to Chris Anka, I had to leave and come back to his booth several times because he was talking to this blonde girl who had an odor coming off her.
Oh.
And it was overpowering. If I had to compare it to anything, it was like when I used to play football in high school and college, and I would forget to take my underclothes from my uniform home, and they would ferment in my locker overnight. That mildewy, musty, sweat for 3 hours kind of smell, that's what was coming off her, except she was bone dry, and I'm just like, oh, God. I forgot what it was like to go through puberty. Oh, God.
It's still funny to me that even in 2016, people are still having these same problems. And we've been telling people for how long? Like, please, for the love of God, take a shower.
I know, you just want to stand there, and no matter how old you are, you turn into someone's parent. Hey, behind your ears and under your arms, okay? Remember where you're supposed to put that soap.
Right. Oh, man. Okay. I mean, yeah. That aside, though, now, was there anything else you want to point out that they could have done better in terms of for this year's Long Beach Comic Con?
Actually, if that brought to mind something I did think of while I was walking around. It'd be nice if they would partner with another hotel.
Oh, was there only one hotel they were working off of, or?
There was only one hotel, and it's not a bad hotel. Before people start saying I'm casting hate stones, give me a sec here, because what I'm trying to get to is that they had only one convention hotel, the Long Beach Hyatt. It's a nice hotel. But it's a business and travel hotel. That didn't create any problems except for, this hotel is the main one for the convention center, and like most things, it's set up for things that happen in front of the convention center. Since Long Beach Convention or Long Beach Comic Con happened behind the convention center, it would have been nice if they partnered up with like the Long Beach Renaissance that was up at the corner of Pine and Ocean, or even better, the Long Beach Westin, which was technically right across the street from where we were supposed to enter the convention at.
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Huh.
So if they had one other block hotel, I can't say if they filled it to capacity, but they at very least would have made it more convenient for the people who were forced to enter the rear of the convention. If you stayed at the Long Beach Hyatt, you would have had to walk around the entirety of the hotel and the convention center to get to the entrance, which is only accessible on one side of the block.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, if I were in that situation, it would become incredibly annoying after a while, specifically if I'm wearing some type of intricate cosplay.
Yeah, and I booked myself at the Residence Inn just because I'm a Marriott Rewards member and I needed the points. So as it turns out, I was lucky because I cut my walk my walk from the front entrance to the back entrance is pretty much equidistant. So I technically made out better than the people going to the convention the regular way.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. So aside from all of that, what were some of the things that the convention got right? What were some of the things that, did they just completely just like nail as far as like the quality of service they provided?
Well, their selection of panels is top rate. They have a good mix of stuff that is industry, fan interest, and fan run. They had comic book and sci-fi stuff. They had four members of the cast of Firefly announced for a single panel, plus Nathan Fillion showed up as just kind of a random surprise.
Nice. Wow, that's crazy.
So that was pretty bonkers. I didn't go to that just because I knew the line was tremendous, and again, I got to be everywhere. So their selection of panels is nice. Their design of their exhibit hall is really good. In addition to which, they decided to put everyone through one entrance to enter the exhibit hall, but it was one entrance that's about 4 double doors wide. They just opened all those doors and put people in front of them to check for badges and just funneled us through.
Nice.
So getting into this convention was super easy.
Awesome. Speaking of which, I wanted to ask real quick. So as far as the badges, I'm not quite sure. Is Long Beach Comic Con part of the circuit with Comic Con and what was it, WonderCon, or is it a whole separate thing?
It's a separate entity. I don't know who runs Long Beach Comic Con and Long Beach Comic Expo, but those are the only 2 conventions I know of that they're doing.
Okay. I was only asking because I know that Comic Con in the conventions they run had this new badge system where you wear this I don't want to say this bracelet, but like this code you scan in.
You mean the RFID badges?
Yeah. So
yeah, these are regular paper badges.
Okay, gotcha.
Actually, I have that wrong. Jesus Christ! You keep asking the right questions, so I'm just answering like a goon apparently. Press and professionals had a paper badge. The regular attendees, they actually had a wristband system.
Okay. It was in the same vein, correct then?
It wasn't digital or anything, and there wasn't any special properties to the wristbands. It was just different colors to denote different access.
Okay. Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. Gotcha. Okay. I feel like given, I would say, I want to say 5 years. And if I'm completely wrong on this one, you can listen to this podcast and like, hey, he was wrong. But I feel like in 5 years.
Call bullshit now. It makes it more entertaining.
Like in 5 years, I feel like that system that Comic-Con has with their with the scan badge you use to get into the convention, I feel like it's going to be more of a thing than what it is right now with their circuits with other conventions. Just saying.
I think you're right. I think it will turn into an industry standard eventually. As of right now, it's hard to say when that will be. And it may raise the general prices of conventions a bit because it's a technology that requires money to make work.
Good point. But I think in the long run, I think that may actually happen. So, hey, mark it down. What was it? 22nd of September, 2016. Anthony says that that's going to be the future.
Mecca lecca hi, mecca heiny ho. What does the great Swami predict next? Flying cars?
Maybe. Nah, the next prediction would be, the fact that Green Bay Packers will win the Super Bowl. Hey, probably not.
I said prediction, not wildest fantasy.
Okay, so aside from
that one's gonna sting a bit.
Yeah. Aside from my predictions or so-called fantasy predictions in the future, so my next question then, because I think the one other thing we forgot to mention is the hotel. How was the hotel you stayed at?
Hotel was nice. I paid the extra money to get a deluxe room, so I had a view of the bay. It had this interesting kind of ledge right underneath the window with a couple cushions on it. It's actually meant for people to sit in and look out over the city or the harbor. Mm-hmm. And I had a good view over the convention center, which coincidentally is how I figured out without going down where I needed to enter from. I was putting my stuff together the morning of the convention. I had the window open, and I was just kind of plugging things in and packing my camera bag, and I noticed this group of people walking away from the convention center around the performance center. And as I watch, I realize they're really brightly colored, and I think 2 of those are furries. I must need to go that way.
I love that because like it's the same thing for me every time I go to Fan Anime. So it's like if I ever get lost, it's like, oh, the closer I get to this one area, the more cosplayers there are. I must be going in the right direction. All right.
It just kind of turned into this demented like Fruit Loops ad. I'll follow my nose.
Exactly. Awesome.
But the staff at the hotel were super nice. They actually answered all my questions before I even really had them, and it's rare that anybody knows how to do that.
Out of curiosity, like, what was the staff pretty at this point like used to the crowd that there is right there for Long Beach Comic Con, or was it still in those cases like, a bunch of weirdos and just like, hey, this, yeah, sure.
Because I didn't stay at the Block Hotel again, I stayed at the Residence Inn. I would say that the Residence Inn was just, they were chill because most of the people staying there are associated with the con were either press like me or they were professionals and exhibitors. So they got all the people who were there just to spend money and just keep everything quiet. However, though, I will say that the Residence Inn turned into the place that people wanted to be afterwards.
Oh, okay.
It turns out that they have this restaurant down below that I didn't pay a hell of a lot of attention to. And after I was done on Saturday night hanging out with Devin and Chris and a couple other cosplayers, I walked back to my hotel just saying, I'm going to use the hot tub for a little bit, soak my feet, and try and relax before I go to sleep, or play some Terra on my laptop, whichever.
Right.
But as I'm on my way back, I'm walking by the restaurant, and I look in and I realize there's a lot of people in costume. What the hell? So I look at a couple of paper signs, and then I realize that all those signs say Club Cosplay on them. They were advertising their next get-together via a get-together in the hotel.
Nice.
So
That's
as we were walking around Saturday night saying, where the hell did all the cosplayers go? I walked back, and the next morning I said, hey, Chris, I found the cosplayers.
Oh, wow, that's great. That's awesome. Cool. I assume that everybody was having a good time then at the what's the word I'm looking for? Not say after party, but like the nightlife. Yeah.
I'd say so. It wasn't really a party what I was looking at, and I would say that simply because I saw them eating cake by the time I was walking by. Awfully fancy for a drunken cosplayers.
Yeah, definitely.
But everybody had this real chill attitude, and it looks like everybody was enjoying themselves. There was a few other people who were just kind of walking around the area. That was the one really odd thing about Long Beach Comic Con, now that I think about it, was that when the convention shut down, let me rephrase that. You know how it is at a lot of conventions, right? When the convention shuts down, that's when other things start, right?
Oh, yeah? The freaks come out at night
situation? Yeah. Cosplayers come out for their nighttime shots, and people just start hanging out, and some of them throw their parties and stuff. Mm-hmm. Long Beach Comic Con, man, when that convention shut down, it's like, it was like cockroaches in reverse. The lights went out, and everybody scattered and just hid under something.
Oh, interesting. So it was more empty than in other conventions would be, per se.
Yeah, that might be because Long Beach Comic Con didn't really have its own rave setup or party or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It may also be because Long Beach has its own kind of club scene that really, it's easily accessible. It's not like Velvet Rope type stuff.
Right. Definitely. Okay. So it's much more of a chill atmosphere than you would get at other cons.
Yeah, Long Beach is definitely one of those places where some people go just to drink and party in general. So there may not have been a lot of call for somebody else to start throwing a random party in the midst of the place.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that's cool. I respect that. I think if anything, there should be more conventions where it's more of a chill, just like hey, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna come with, we're gonna have a beer or whatnot, and just and just relax and whatnot. Yeah. So
actually, you got me talking. That brings up a third thing. Is that Long Beach Comic Con may already be outgrowing the Long Beach Convention Center. It was kind of packed in the exhibit hall at certain times of Saturday.
Have they said or say what the numbers were for this year?
It's a bit early. I would expect that announcement probably in the next week. If I had to take a guess, I would say they probably went over 6,000.
Wow.
And that may not sound like a lot for those of you who are used to like Anime Expo or Comic-Con or San Diego Comic-Con, but for a small to mid-sized convention, they're doing pretty good for themselves.
And this is what year for them? Is this at this point? Like,
I really don't know the history. I keyed into this convention myself about 3 years ago and just decided to check it out and had a better time than I thought I would.
Interesting. I will be very curious how fast the growth is. But if anything that we learned over the years and covering these conventions for a while is that, if a really good convention starts off really well and just gets better every year, the more people that come. So
I thought it was anything we learned is don't touch Squirrel Girl's nuts.
Buzzing. So okay, I'll be very interested to see what those numbers were. But in that case of like if it's outgrowing the convention center, what would be the next? I mean, this is putting on Swami hat, but like, what's the next place you would think they would put the convention at?
That's a little bit of a hard call. Not because they have to stay in Long Beach to be a successful convention. I know it's in the name, but you can change a name. The hard part is there's several places you can go to grow, like Anaheim or Los Angeles, but then you get compared to other conventions that have already happened in those buildings. It's hard to carve out your own identity when you're constantly being compared to something else.
Right, definitely. I wonder. I'm curious. I wonder if they decide to stay in Long Beach. I wonder if at some point when the numbers are starting to become like too much to the fact that like you can't have this many people in one building because of fire hazard issues. Like I wonder at some point like are they gonna cap it kind of how Anime LA did for a bit when they were back in the other hotel prior to moving to the convention center in Ontario.
Yeah, Ontario.
Yeah. So I
was going to say it's a decent question, but it's one that's kind of hard to answer in the moment.
Gotcha.
It turns into what do you want to do? Do you want to allow less people to go to the convention and make it a little more exclusive by nature, or do you want to find another venue that works for more people? But it sounds like such an easy thing to say, well, obviously move to a larger venue, get more people, but then you have to sign more guests.
Yeah.
Then you got to add more activities. You got to add more vendors, and that's not something you can do on the fly.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'd be very curious to see what they do, what their next step is. But I would assume that next year they'll stay at the same location. But I'm very curious as far as like what their next moves are in pertains to the growth of the convention, the location, and everything associated with that.
Well, unlike a lot of other conventions and convention systems out there, at least if the people at Long Beach decide they want to move, they could actually wheel and deal with moving 2 shows, not 1.
Oh, that's a good point. They could do 2. Yeah, you're right.
So they may actually be in a better position to negotiate a move than most other places.
Very good point. The one thing I have noticed is like, I won't say more of these conventions, but like some mid-major conventions and some that are coming up more, like they're having like 2 shows a year, like one in the fall and one in the winter. Now, whether that is to kind of balance like the amount of people that go from, one show to another, I'm kind of curious if that really works or not. But in some cases, like eventually that will just go into both shows are now like fully capacity with these people, so it didn't really matter. But like, I'm just very curious what they want to do next.
Well, if I can throw something into your wheelbarrow and have you ponder it, in the case of like Comic-Con International, they have San Diego Comic-Con and WonderCon, which works out for them because San Diego is their big industry-wide, pop culture megalith that it's difficult to get into and everybody wants, right? WonderCon is not as big of a show, but it also gets some industry people, both TV and comic book, and it's a little more fan-friendly, lots more cosplay, lots more places for people to gather, and they actually have some fan panels at that convention, so it fills a niche that Comic-Con doesn't have.
I see what you're saying.
Anime Expo, when they bought out Kanji, they used Kanji to kind of test run a lot of the things they were going to do at Anime Expo. Well, now Kanji's gone, so I don't know if that was such a great thing, but
Right.
it's what they did. In the case of Long Beach Comic-Con and Long Beach Comic Expo, they're both run by the same company, and I don't think they're trying things. I think they're running largely the same convention at both shows. The difference is, though, the dates they've picked tend to be at mid-September and mid-February, which if you look at a calendar, pretty devoid of conventions in California at that point.
It's true. It's very true.
So I think they're running two shows in an area where a lot of people are starting to have those weird itches where they got to go to cons. Long Beach Comic Expo, right in February, right when a lot of people are going, God, what's next on my calendar?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Long Beach Comic Con, which happens after 2 weeks after Labor Day generally.
Yeah.
So that's another pretty big clear spot, at least in Southern California, as far as conventions go. And that's another place where people are probably thinking, man, the holidays are coming up soon. Got to perfect my Halloween costume. Where's my cosplay crap?
Right. Definitely. Okay. Yeah. I think that it's from the sounds of things, like they're running the same convention twice, but at the same time in a place where it filled in the convention need per se for a lot of cosplayers in the SoCal area. And like in between, obviously, there's other conventions happening in the SoCal area, but also, obviously outside of California, there people will probably go and attend as well, whatever that may be. I definitely keep an eye on Long Beach Comic Con and everything associated with it in the future. And you can find it all here on our website at missionstartpodcast.com. So before we end this podcast, one last question, Jeremy.
It came off. The doctor says the ointment's working fine.
I was not even going to ask that, but okay.
That wasn't okay.
You just announced that to the entire world right now.
Hey, there's only one case of leprosy in California, and I ain't it, all right?
My last question is overall thoughts on this year's Long Beach Comic Con.
God, that gets complicated. It is a show with a lot of possibility, and it's marred a little bit by its hiccups. But I would say that if you're a hardcore comic book collector, this might not be the place for you. If you want to meet the people that put together your comic books, you might actually have an easier time getting access here than you would even at WonderCon, or technically maybe even Comic-Con, just due to the fact that you're fighting less people to get to them.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Not quite what you were looking for, but it's honest.
No, but that's what I want. Honesty. That's all we are about. So again, thank you, Jeremy, for I was going to say like coming down, but
thanks for coming down to this digital venue where I can't see you or smell you.
Thank you for joining me tonight to talk about everything about Long Beach Comic Con. Before we end the show, where can they find you on the internet?
I do a weekly comic book podcast for Mission Star Podcast called The Rollin' 20s. We've been off for the last couple of weeks because of a combination of calendars, conventions, and just the fact that it came to the point where I needed a weekend off. It had been a very long time since I had one. As a matter of fact, the 20s and I are getting ready to get together at Kamikaze Expo, run by or partially owned by Stan Lee. So we're going to, I don't want to say create some havoc because that would make me sound like an anime fan.
Oh, that's great.
But we're looking to have some fun. Then in December, we're getting back together in Las Vegas for Great American Comic-Con. I have personally been asked to host the panels with guys like Howard Chaykin and Bob Layton, Len Wein. If you know anything about comic books, you're really happy. If you don't know anything about comic books, you're wondering why your boyfriend is excited right now.
Yes. We had a fun time the last year when I was there. Should be pretty awesome again this year. And definitely look out for coverage of that in the near future. Awesome. You can follow me on Twitter at Defective Naruto. You can follow the work that me and Jeremy do on our website at missionstartpodcast.com. You can check out all our coverage of Long Beach Comic Con here on our website. It'll be in the convention review section, in the convention photos, and other places around the site you will probably see pop up in terms of like what's new and what's new stuff to check out. So definitely thank you again for listening to this podcast, and also we are live on this podcast whenever a convention is covered. in some capacity.
Yeah,
So,
what's the next one you got coming?
so for me, I'm actually going to go and attend a local convention. I've not been to in a while, but I've heard it is, in my opinion, one of the better up-and-coming conventions in the NorCal area, and that is
Northern California Otterfest?
yes, exactly.
Okay.
No, this is based out of Oakland, California, and it is KrakenCon. This would be I want to say their fourth year running their annual convention, and as far as of the coverage of KrakenCon and my previous talks about it, they have definitely stepped up their game, and they have becoming a better convention over time, and I'm hearing nothing but praise. So I'm gonna go check it out this year, and definitely check it out and let you guys know when.
See, you saying I complain about conventions and they get better. Listen to me.
Exactly. So that's gonna be what's on my bucket list for this year. But
Bucket list.
yeah, man, I gotta.
You're the leper in California. What the hell?
I mean, I gotta aim somewhere. I mean, I was gonna say aim high, but that's not.
What are you talking about? You make it sound like you're gonna pee in my face. What's happening here?
Oh man, I don't know. At this point, I feel like yeah, I don't know. Let's
Channel R. Kelly on me. Help me, please. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've run out of hope.
Let's just end the podcast before it gets any weirder.
We can get weird.
That's not. That's after hours. So, anyways, so that's gonna do it for us. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you guys next time.